If you could take a little time today to save a ton of time later on when it comes to making dinner, would you do it? Well, this week is mini menu number 16, and we're going to do another progressive meal plan where we start with one item and we switch it up into 3 different items. So let's look at what we're doing this week. This week, we're going to start with a big old batch of chili. And the great thing about chili is that you can easily make a huge portion or a small portion. In this case, we're going to make a large portion. Now, I wanted to mention that chili freezes really, really well. So when you look at these recipes, you may want to do them all in 1 week and you have 3 separate meals. Or you could start with your big batch of chili and then you could just freeze it into portions and then you have 3 meals ready to go for later on for like busy nights and whatnot. And the great thing about chili is you can easily defrost it if you store it in like a Ziploc, freezer bag. Now, if I have the time, I'm going to pull that bag the night before and I'm going to put it in the fridge and it will be mostly defrosted the next day. But I have found that it's super easy. I take out a big pot. I put my, frozen chili in the bag, in the pot with some water. It doesn't take very long, especially if you flatten that bag when you freeze it. That's just a little freezer hack. So let's look at our grocery list this week. Here is our grocery list for the week. Now keep in mind there are 2 items that you are going to need to buy multiples of. That's going to be the ground turkey and the kidney beans. Now, I also want to mention that the bag of cheese that we're getting is not the standard 8-ounce bag. It's actually a double bag. So it's a full pound, which roughly comes out to about 4 cups of cheese. Now, you could easily buy 2 separate smaller bags in different, flavors, if you will. That's totally up to you. They came out to the same price. So I just did 1 bag, all of like a mild cheddar. So our total this week for a total, it was $29.80. So we were right there at the $30 budget for 3 meals. And I do have 2 links down below. One goes to my Walmart grocery list where you can look at all the items and just add them straight to your cart. The second goes to my website where you can see all of the slides as well as download a free PDF. So let's look at our base recipe this week. Now, I know that lots of people have their own little twists on chili, and that's totally fine. But I wanted to give you a good base recipe for some stovetop chili. Now, there are lots of options here. We're using ground turkey this week because that was just the most economical. The price of ground beef is just crazy high. Now, if you really like ground beef, I would definitely suggest maybe buying the hamburger patties instead of the rolls, just because those typically come out a little bit cheaper, but keep an eye on your prices. Now, for the rest of these items, typically we're going to use 2 onions, but it actually came out cheaper to buy the already chopped onions. And that comes out to about 3 cups of onions, which is about the amount you would get from 2 onions. This is also a great option if you don't like chopping onions, you don't have time, or just chopping onions is difficult for you. So the other thing on this is we're going to use a combination of diced tomatoes with the juice and tomato sauce. Now, as an alternative to this, you could just use like 3 15-ounce cans of diced tomatoes. You could add one that's like a tomatoes with chili. So I would look and see what you already have. I know that canned tomatoes in different forms is one of the things I always have in my pantry. So I just kind of mix and match based on what I have. Now, you'll notice that we're going to be using some just straight chili powder and then whatever your favorite seasonings are. I have found over the years that most of the chili powder seasoning packs are really just salt and chili powder. So we're going to cut out the middleman. It's a whole lot cheaper just to buy your own container of chili powder and then add any additional favorite seasonings you like, whether that be salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, whatever you like. For the first meal that we're going to do in our 3-meal series, we're going to do some chili rice bowls. There's 2 reasons for that. I know you were probably thinking we're just going to do a bowl of chili, and that is definitely a possibility. But if you look at how much chili you would need to serve 4 bowls of chili, that's kind of a lot of chili. Whereas if you just add a starch to this, and in this case, we're going to use some cooked white rice. Now we can kind of cut that amount in half because you can do half a bowl of rice and then half a bowl of chili on top. Also, I feel that adding a starch to chili makes it a little bit more filling. Yes, it has beans in it and those can be super filling, but adding that starch just makes this batch of chili stretch even further. Now, when it comes to like a rice bowl, you usually want to add in a vegetable. In this case, we're going to go with corn because that works really well with chili. But honestly, you can look around and see what kind of vegetables you have because they're really easy to add to this. Now, if you've been around for a while, you know I'm a huge fan of an avocado. It's a great healthy fat and I just love the way they taste. So I would do a sliced avocado with some shredded cheddar cheese and some sour cream to just make a whole bowl. Now, you could also do this more bowl style with like the Frito pie effect, where you, instead of rice, you do Fritos. You could also do chopped cooked potatoes. You could do mashed potatoes. You could even do spaghetti noodles. Those are all options. I'm just letting you know that I would cut the chili with a starch to make it last longer. Now, the second dinner that we're going to do is going to be chili nachos. This is one part super comfort food, but it's also another part super quick, easy weeknight meal. Because really, all we need to do is reheat our chili, which you can do in a microwave, assemble our nachos, and then pop it either in an air fryer, a toaster oven, or even a regular oven if you're using it. Now, once all of our cheese and our chili is nice and hot and bubbly, then I'm going to top it with some shredded lettuce and some sour cream. Now, if you don't like lettuce, you could obviously leave that off. But personally, I'm going to be looking in my fridge for an extra tomato because I like to add fresh tomato to my nachos. But there is a good amount of tomatoes in our chili. So that's just totally up to you. And you can also top this with other optional toppings. Just take a look in your fridge. Maybe you have some green onions or you have some jalapeno slices, like the pickled ones. Whatever you typically like to have on your chili or your nachos will definitely work out here. Now, for our last meal in this progressive series, we're going to do a chili mac pasta. And this is really just a super simple mac and cheese recipe where at the end, we're going to stir in our leftover chili and we're going to make everything kind of all stirred together. Now, I will mention that a lot of times what I'll do is I won't mix the chili into all of the pasta because sometimes my kids are more likely to eat the mac and cheese with chili on the side. So if you have picky eaters, that's always an option. Now, of course, I love the big old French loaves at Walmart, but I have been noticing it seems the regular price is about $1.47. So if you did have some bread, you could always serve that with pasta, even if it's just regular sandwich bread. Put some butter on it, maybe some Parmesan cheese or whatever you have, and just make some cheesy bread to go with your cheesy pasta. I don't know. This is total comfort food to me. And I also did not include a vegetable on this one because I figure you know what works best for your family, so you can easily pick up a can of vegetables to go with this. You can count the tomatoes and the chili as your vegetable, whatever goes. So now, I do want to remind you that you can go to our website and download a completely free PDF. It all prints out on one page. It has the grocery list. It has all 4 recipes, the base recipe plus the 3 dinners. And it's very convenient because it's all going to print in black and white. I'm not trying to use up your ink. So if you've been following along, this is our 16th menu. So you should have a pretty decent book by now. And we're going to keep adding to it because, like I said, whether you use this menu for a whole week of meals or if you want to make some chili ahead of time and freeze the chili, these are 3 meals that you can make from frozen chili later on.